All right. Taking time out of his busy schedule this morning, and I really appreciate it. It is the man who had an extraordinary call of that game last night, ESPN's Sean McDonough. Hey, Sean.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I've really enjoyed the conversation about the skiing. Sounds like a great trip.
Is your finger up for it? Has that thing repaired itself, or what's the current situation with that?
I'm just not a good skier. You know, I've tried it a couple times, never really got the bug.
Yeah, golf is your game.
Yeah, it's too much effort, right? You got to put the outfit on, the skis on, go up and down the hill, and then most of the time I'm doing it, I'm thinking I'm going too fast for my ability to stop, or I'm about to run somebody over, or somebody's about to run me over, or it's just not. I don't turn very well, so you start going down the mountain a little too fast. It's just I've tried, but it's not my thing.
Well, that was a good football.
And my finger is fine. Thank you for asking.
How's the condo?
After 8 weeks in a cast, 11 weeks after surgery, it didn't work. So my finger is permanently damaged. But you know what? We power through.
How's the condo, Sean? Is it sold? Still looking for a renter, maybe?
Gosh. No, it isn't. I think I'm staying now. You know, Greg convinced me that the neighborhood is great, and it is great. You know, I love the Seaport, and so I think we're going to ride it out at least for a while, and
good.
Remain neighbors with Greg.
All right.
Although this time of the year we're in Arizona, so have not been around there for a while.
Well, that was a great game last night.
Awesome.
Sean, when you look at that game last night and being there, do you think that Notre Dame can win the whole thing? Because I think the one area where they do struggle is their inability to throw the ball, especially outside the numbers to the wide receiver. I know the kid Greathouse had a nice catch, but for most part of the game, they struggled with that. And they're going to play either an Ohio State team or a Texas team, you know, that can really make some plays in the passing game.
Yeah, I do think that's their one obvious weakness, and you know it's been a problem all year. And the play you mentioned, Wiggy, was made really because the defender fell down for Penn State, and Greathouse wound up being wide open. So, but that's been a problem for them all year, and they've always managed to overcome it. You know, they don't look pretty doing it, but you know, we were saying on SportsCenter after the game, they really are just a team, right? I'm sure as a football guy, you can appreciate that. You know, it's all three phases. It's excellent coaching. There's really a vibe there. You know, in this day and age now with the transfer portal and people going in and out, and, you know, a lot of these football programs feel like bus stops where people are just passing by. And, you know, they really have a vibe there and a culture. And I think it starts with Marcus Freeman, and he has an excellent staff. You know, it's just, I wouldn't put it past them. They don't look pretty doing it, but, you know, they keep winning. They've won, 13 games in a row now. I wouldn't bet against them. You know, it just kind of feels like it's their season.
Wiggy and Shime have their heart set on Abdul Carter at number 4 for the New England Patriots. Is he even available at that spot at this point?
I don't know. You know, Mel Kiper has him as number 2 on his big board, any position, number 2 overall behind Travis Hunter. So, you know, that was the first time I've seen him play this year in person. We don't have the Big Ten anymore at ESPN. We had a relationship with them for 40 years, but it ended a couple of years ago. So, yeah, I've only seen him on TV. I was impressed last night because it was clear that his shoulder is still pretty messed up. You know, he was basically winning at the line of scrimmage and creating a pressure all night long, playing with one arm, you know. So it was impressive the way he gutted that out. And, you know, he was a huge factor early. You know, I know you guys watched the game. It was just surprising to me the way it turned, because when it was 10-0 and it looked like they were knocking Notre Dame off the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, I thought, you know, Penn State's clearly the best team. And, you know, the thing that can't be underestimated is the job that the backup quarterback for Notre Dame did. You know, when he came in the game late in the half and they hadn't done anything, and he marched them down the field, got a field goal, gave him a little momentum going into the locker room. You know, that was big.
Sean, speaking of field goals, you had a great call on that final one. Watching it on TV, it was kind of a weird kick, the way in which the ball moved. It looked like it was almost going out, then it swooped back in at the last minute. For you, in the moment, calling something like that, how fun is it or how difficult is it while watching?
Yeah, and it's true, right? I mean, it looked like as a golfer, you'd say it's slicing, and usually when the ball's slicing, it keeps slicing, and you know, maybe it was touchdown Jesus up there redirecting the ball through the uprights, but you know, it did. I mean, it was fading, and then it hooked. So, as I said, it just kind of feels like their season, and that was another example of it because you don't usually see a ball that travels on that flight path. And yeah, I was happy for the kid. You know, Mitch Jeter is a really good kicker, and he struggled the second half of the year because he pulled his groin about halfway through the year kicking off against Stanford. And they were the worst field goal kicking team in the country, which makes what happened in the playoff so incredible. You know, they were below 50% in field goals in the regular season, which was worst out of 134 teams. And then, you know, he got healthy. We told the story a couple of times. His dad's a chiropractor and flew from Charlotte up to Notre Dame to help the kid get healthy. And he said the only thing that it hurt him to do was kick a football. He could run, do a lot of other things, and it didn't hurt. So, yeah, and it's fun. I mean, you know, it's interesting because we're at the 50-yard line to answer the other part of your question. You know, so it's not a great angle to call a field goal that's kind of diagonally to your left or right. So you call it off the monitor because it's the vantage point from behind. So as it was about halfway there, I thought this isn't going to be good, and then it was good. So that's what we hope for in our business. You know, it's something that comes down to the end.
Sean, given this incredible hot stove season, how much time did you spend scripting Soto home run calls that you had to scrap?
Yeah, at least they made, from what I understand, an honest effort, right? I can't blame them for dropping out once the price got to where it did. At a certain point, it's ridiculous, and at a certain point, I think everybody knew, not just the Red Sox, but the other teams, that, you know, the Mets were just going to keep going until they got it done. So I guess at a certain point, you know, it's like being at one of those auctions and you're bidding it up. You do run the risk of you actually get something that maybe you don't want. I'm sure they wanted it, but, you know, at a certain price, you're out. So I understand what they did, but it's still exciting, some of the other things that they've done. And, you know, they should be better with the improvement in the pitching, assuming everybody stays healthy, which is, you know, this day and age, sometimes a big assumption.
What do you think tonight? I like Texas just because I think Ryan Day gets tight in these kind of games. I like Sarkisian as a coach. What do you expect tonight in the Cotton Bowl?
Yeah, I think people are really jumping on the Ohio State bandwagon because of how good they've looked in the two games, and they really have. Although, you know, I thought in the Tennessee game, Tennessee was awful. You know, the quarterback just had a really rough night, and they just were bad. What they did to Oregon was really impressive, and I think scary for the rest of the field. But you know, you know, the Big Ten, and I said this during our Notre Dame Indiana game, and I got in trouble with the Big Ten people. But you know, historically over the years in bowl games, and you know, even in this playoff, the Big Ten hasn't done very much. This is the 11th year now of this format. You know, they've won 2 national championships in the first 10 years. So. You know, I have a lot of respect for the SEC. I have a lot of respect for the Big Ten, too. But I do think maybe people are overreacting a little bit to what Ohio State's done in these 2 games and perhaps forgot the Michigan game where they looked awful. So we shall see tonight. But I agree with you. You know, there's still pressure on Ohio State. You know, it's just like last night with James Franklin. You know, his whole career now has become he can't win the big one. And then last night it looked like he was going to win the big one. And then not only did they lose, but they lost in excruciating fashion. I think he's 1-18 now against top 5 teams. So, yeah, it's rough, and that was particularly rough last night. I'm in the Miami airport right now, and I've been walking by a lot of Penn State fans. There's a lot of glum-looking people, and you know, that's when it's hard to be a sports fan when your team loses like that. When it looks like for a lot of the night you're going to win.
Right, and they were the more talented team on paper. Sean, you've been around a lot of college football this year. How great has it been for college football with the expansion of the 12 teams and what it's been able to do for just us fans in general to be able to see what we've seen over the last several weeks?
Yeah, I think it's great. Don't you, Wiggy? I mean, I just think it's great. You know, the people were saying, well, it's going to make the end of the regular season irrelevant because these games don't mean anything because all these teams are going to be in the playoff, and that's not true. You know, it made the games at the end of the season much more relevant because – you know, in the 4-team playoff for the previous 10 years, you just kind of knew that when it got to the last couple of weeks of the regular season, there were only maybe 8 teams that had a chance to be among the four. And then this year there was many more times that. So we did a bunch of games at the end of the regular season that, in previous years might not have had anywhere near as much meaning as they did this year. And it makes the conference championship games that much more meaningful because you have teams, like UNLV and Clemson who are playing in these conference championship games knowing if they win, they're going to be in the playoff, and if they lose, they're not going to be. So, I think it's been great. And then the games on the campus, we did the first game, which was at Notre Dame, which I thought was so perfect, to have the first ever college football playoff game on a campus be at Notre Dame. And the atmosphere there was tremendous. And matter of fact, there's talk about maybe in the future trying to play more games on campus. So I think it's been a huge home run. Molly McGrath, our sideline reporter, was just texting our group talking about how much fun this expanded playoff has been, and I really think it has been. And the TV ratings bear it out, too. People are watching and very interested in it.
Well, Sean, thanks for taking the time this morning. Safe flight, and we'll see you back here when the weather gets better, I guess.
All right, guys and girls, good to talk to you, and have a great day.
All right, that is Sean McDonough of ESPN.